Hello and welcome to my channel on human design. Today I want to look at decision making. I want to look at inner authority, and I want to be very clear about it. When we're thinking about decision making in human design, we are always talking about correct decision making that comes from something that is non-mental. Ra was very clear in what he said when he said, we are reactive, not creative. We react. In generators, we respond to something. The energy rises towards it or shrinks back from it. In emotional decision making, there is a process to be lived out in the emotional streams before coming to the clarity that lets you know whether you'd rather go in or rather come out. It is something non-mental. And we've been taught to make mental decisions. We've been taught to make a positive list and a negative list. And, which one is longer is the one that you decide to do. That's not a decision. That's a mental exercise. The mind is of no use in decision making because we don't know what we're going to go into. We don't know the consequences of making a decision. We cannot know. But once the decision is made, it's like the dam is open. The floodgates are open. There is a flow that comes. A turning of the tide comes when you make a decision. So when you decide to go for a walk, then the mind can come in. Then the mind is very useful. You can get your boots, you can get your coat. If it's getting dark, you can get your torch. The mind can think it through after the decision has been made. Very useful, but the decision itself comes from within. It is inner authority. And you don't know what you're going to respond to as a generator. You don't know how the invitation is going to be presented to you if you're a projector. You don't know what that energy in you, if you're a manifester, is going to initiate. You don't know until it's happening. Reactive, responding, coming from something that is not mental. And this is a very important aspect. You've got to drop the conditioning of having to think things through before making a decision. It is the opposite that works. So we have the flow once a decision has been made. We have the movement of when a decision is being made. Suddenly movement takes place. It can involve all kinds of different actions, but movement is taking place. This is change. This is opening you up to something new. Now, when we talk about opening, very often I think about the second line and the openness or the closeness. When you're open, you are vulnerable. When you're open, you are unaware of the things that perhaps, you need to know. You're open. You're going to have to find out. Welcome to the third line, the trial and error process, finding out. But it begins with a decision that opens you up for a new aspect in your life, whether it be a new career, a new movement, a new relationship, a new car, whatever it may be. It's something where you're open and then you proceed. And if you look at the I Ching, there are ways to proceed. To be consistent with what is consistent in you, to be consistent according to who you are. This is the key. You already have consistency in you if you're not a reflector, and then it's a bit of a longer story, but you have something that is consistent, that is you, that is moving forward. You are consistently fixed in certain life forces. And when we talk about life forces and we talk about new experience and what happens when you make a decision, look at the 2946, the journey of discoveries. It takes commitment. It takes a certain amount of dedication. It takes going through the experience that you get into because of the decision, where you expand. And in my view of the world, expansion and the living of the life is one of the most important things. It's also important to realize that decisions can come in for a pause. It's a very wise thing sometimes when the body isn't responding to anything in particular, that you have this calming period, this period where you can look back and get a bigger picture, where you can get a handle on exactly where you find yourself, who you find yourself with, what you find yourself doing. Pausing is very good. Where it gets dangerous is when there's too much stagnation, when the energy isn't there to continue in the way that you're going. Then a new decision is necessary to create the flow and the movement once more. And it is very likely to be in a different flow, in a different direction, in a different kind of movement. How do you know that you've made a decision? You know you've made a decision because there is movement. You know you've made a decision because you're open. You know you've made a decision because there is suddenly this mustering of the forces around you in order to go through and into it, in order to walk through the door, in order to roll your sleeves up and get into whatever it is that you've decided to do. There is this energy that comes to take you into that next space. Another thing I want to share with you about the mind is that I know a researcher that has discovered that the mind, when it comes to choosing colors, will choose the opposite of what the body needs. The opposite. You know, you say, well, choose a color, you choose a color, and then you look at the opposite, and that's the color that begins to nourish you and feed you. There is this reversal in the mind that cannot accurately decide on your behalf. It is a secondary thing, the mind, for us, for each one of us. It's secondary. It's there to help after the decision has been made, but it cannot know what is right for you. Only your own inner authority can make that decision. So once a decision has been made, there is this movement. Now, fear can be part of it at some point. You know, you suddenly find yourself in the middle of something and you go, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? It's a good third line experience that we have many times. But the point is, you're in it. And because you're in it, and because of the movement, and because of the energy, there is an excitement about it, and the fear is part of that. It's not like making challenging decisions, you know, making the dangerous decisions that can really change your life and transform your life. It's not like it's not without fear coming in at certain times. It's just that the fear is secondary to the movement and the energy that's going along with that decision that you've made. I'm speaking to you now about this because, you know, the past is something that is no longer relevant in the present in many cases. The world is changing. There are many things that are changing. You know, if you want to continue to expand, if you want to continue to move in this life, then change is necessary. The past no longer holds the way it did. And although there are many people that are holding on to a life that is no longer relevant for them, doesn't mean you should. This is the whole joy of human design. This is the whole joy of it, because you know you're involved in your own life. You know it is your life that you are living. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know all the consequences. You know, the third line will tell you, well, if you get it wrong, there'll be a cost to pay. Yes, but the cost of not taking the jump when there is inner authority to make the change is far more, because that leads into a downward spiral of stagnancy and decay, and really not what you want to get involved with. I mean, we see this in nature. You know, you leave fruit out too long, and it begins to decay, it begins to discolor, it begins to fall in on itself. And so does the life, if you don't move when movement is necessary. So there is this necessity to take some of those dangerous decisions that you're putting off. If you've already made the decision, you can make the decision, and then the fear comes in and you hold back. No, we're not ready yet, not ready yet. Okay, how long is that going to go on for? And is there another pattern that comes to reinforce that stagnancy? I mean, it's insidious. You know, if you're caught in a trap, if you're caught in a life that is not working, bit by bit it creeps in on you, and it becomes more and more difficult to break out of it. So to be alive means to take the risk. You know, I could say to you it's a matter of life and death, and from an existential point of view that I rather like, I would agree. Are you deciding to choose for life? Are you deciding to choose for death, to entropy? There is always this balance. And I have my own direction, which is to go forward, but sometimes the direction is good to be able to look back and recreate something from that. Sometimes it's a decision to go in a completely different way to everyone else, to be the first one to do something, to be the first one to try something, for you to choose something you've never done before and see yourself through it one way or another. There is a resilience in the third line that helps them to move into the adventure of what life is. I've found whenever I've made a dangerous decision and gone in a different direction to the direction that I was going in, I find there is always a container that comes around, a container for the directed action. And when I began the magazine, suddenly that became a priority. And that was my container. What did I need to do in order to make this thing happen? Once committed to the journey, there is a container that comes around you that then focuses on that journey. And there is no one way of doing it for everyone. We are all different. And embracing that difference and going, hey, you know, I'm going to make my own decisions, and only I can, you know, to get to that point when you realize that you really are the only one that can make the correct decisions for your life. Nobody else can. You know, especially these days with the internet, you know, there's all kinds of bullshit out there. You know, there's professional liars that go out there. They present something as that is fictional, but they know that you want it, and they tell you you can have it, and you go, oh, great, I'm going to follow you. You know, welcome to all the corrupt politicians that really don't give a damn. And there is so many ways to be fooled out there. You don't want to be making decisions from the mind. You want to be making decisions from what is your decision-making ability. And the final thing I want to say about making correct decisions is that the more you make correct decisions, the more you're able to make correct decisions. One correct decision can lead to another. And when you are a generator responding, and you respond and the life opens up and you move into something that you haven't any idea where it's going, and it works, and it's nourishing, and it feeds you, and it's an interesting life, you know, you're going to be making other decisions based on that. Yes, the mind will come in, especially at the beginning, but it doesn't stay there. If you keep making correct decisions, you actually understand what Ra tried to teach us when he said, wait for the response. Wait for the response. It's not about jumping into any action. It's not about, I want to do this, so I'm going to do it. It's waiting for the response to really take you into it, where your forces come together, where the container comes around you, and where you move into it correctly with the flow behind you. When you're an emotional being and you know to wait for emotional clarity, and when you really wait for emotional clarity and feel into everything that needs to be felt into and come to your decision based on that, everything then opens up again. Things get clearer. The life proceeds in a less resistant way, and things begin to drop. The cage that we've got around us begins to drop bit by bit by bit by bit. One correct decision leads to another correct decision, and you aren't making the decision from your mind. The decision is being made on your behalf, on the body's behalf. This is the life of the body with the personality witnessing it. The body makes the decisions. All we have to do is get out of our own way and follow the inner authority that comes from that non-mental source. It is quite an experiment to run human design, and there are many difficult decisions that we'll be making along the process for our own life, for the movement in life, and for the enjoyment of what this life really is. And there are so many neat discoveries along the way. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please like, share, and subscribe. That would be very good. And I will see you again with something completely different. Bye for now.